Adam Taxin with Daniel Greenfield discussing his column for Monday, May 14th, 2012, the Post-American Skyscraper. The Post-American Skyscraper. Daniel, welcome. And like a lot of your titles, there's a metaphor in there for something that goes beyond what's in the title. What do you mean by the Post-American Skyscraper beyond simply the Post-American Skyscraper?
The American Skyscraper was a projection of American exceptionalism, of American can-do spirit, of the idea that with time and effort, with energy and will, we could accomplish anything. The Post-American Skyscraper represents the exact opposite of that.
Give a little background on the history of the Empire State Building, which you sort of touch on in there, but I think you probably know a lot more, and it's interesting as a supplement to your actual column.
The Empire State Building is arguably the most quintessential American skyscraper. It really captures the essence that ambition, and it was amazingly enough, it was built within a single year. The blueprints for it were drawn up in 2 weeks. It was an amazing accomplishment, and it's never really been equaled. And the new Freedom Tower will hardly be slightly higher than it.
Wait, did you just call it the Freedom Tower? Aren't you not supposed to call it that anymore?
Oh, yes. It's no longer the Freedom Tower because, well, it might dissuade all our foreign renters and the Muslim companies who might want to move in there from wanting to move in there if we call it the Freedom Tower.
Yes.
If we call it the Slavery Tower, it might be much more appealing.
Yeah, Daniel doesn't usually make mistakes like that, but it is after 10 p.m. at night, so we'll forgive him this time. You made an interesting point also about the architecture, how the very top part of the Empire State Building was a part of the form and a function as opposed to what will be in the Freedom Tower, which is just an afterthought, and also in some of the tallest buildings in the world, which I guess are in Dubai and other places. Can you talk about that a little bit?
If you look at modern skyscrapers, you tend to see these massive spires, these needles just sticking out there. They have no real function. They're nailing down a specific height. And really a lot of modern architecture, particularly with skyscrapers, has a sense of discordancy to it. It lacks symmetry. It's there to disturb your view of the sky. But while the Empire State Building was really a descendant of a whole entirely different tradition, which was geared toward creating symmetrical, monumental works.
And what is the lesson we can get about America in the future, that from seeing the bland glass skyscrapers today, what does it suggest about our country? And is anything ever going to really change?
You can tell a lot about a culture, about its ambition, about the road that it's traveling, by what it builds, by what it's constructing, because the buildings that we construct, they're homes. They're the homes that we construct for ourselves, are the homes that we construct for our future and for our culture. When the homes that we construct have no real ambition, when they have no real vision, then that speaks volumes about our civilization.
Let me just go on a different tangent here. Final question, but you talk about, obviously write about Israel a lot, and while there aren't too many skyscrapers in Israel, there are some pretty tall buildings in Tel Aviv in particular. Anything you can read into those?
There's the Israeli towers, but I wouldn't read that much into it because Israel is really a small and a young country, so you wouldn't necessarily see something like that over there. And aside from while yes, it is overpopulated, it is dense in some places, there is also room to grow. If anything, Israel really isn't properly using the space.
Yeah, and Tel Aviv is probably an exception to the rule, and Israel would be.
And while Israel doesn't have skyscrapers, it does have satellites, and it does have ambition. But obviously, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a lack of ambition in this case. It's just that Israel is a young country, and considering how relatively young, for example, Tel Aviv is, I wouldn't necessarily expect skyscrapers. It would be possible to build skyscrapers, but it would be the same kind of mess you have in Dubai and Malaysia. You don't really have an indigenous architecture or the same kind of indigenous discipline and art that it takes to create that.
And Jerusalem, the capital, obviously has a whole other level of architectural restrictions.
Yes. Israel really functions in a different way, and it doesn't necessarily make much sense for that. Skyscrapers in the Middle East really are a way to show off your wealth and power. It's not really physically, structurally relevant the way it is in Europe or in the United States.
It seems to be the same mentality as with minarets, though obviously the Arab view of skyscrapers probably isn't that different from the Asian view of skyscrapers, but minarets...
It's exactly that vision. Back in the day, an Israeli military advisor was talking about these guys who wanted the biggest rifles. They didn't want rifles that worked well. They wanted really, really huge rifles because that showed off how much power they had, and they wanted really, really huge cars, even though they really didn't need those cars. Those cars didn't work too well.
Right.
So they want to have the biggest things because it's a cargo cult mentality. If you have the biggest things, that proves that you're superior.
Right. Except for the rifles might not work too well, how big they are. They might not be too useful. But anyhow, the Post-American Skyscraper, Daniel Greenfield's column for Monday, May 14th, 2012. Daniel, thanks as always. And your columns can be found at sultanknish.blogspot.com.